Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show designed to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a neuropsychologist and psychologist. I am also the parent of, I believe we have decided it was two ADHDers, and I married into a whole family full of ADHD. And most of the time, people who work with ADHD and people who have ADHD relatives, families, dependents, that sort of thing, have a lot of time spent talking about the negatives, the hyperactivity, the impulsivity, the poor working memory. But there are a lot of strengths. I mean, I work with ADHDers not just because I have ADHD children and I had to learn to survive, basically, but because they're really the most interesting folks that I work with. And they have a lot of strengths and once they get out of school, life gets a lot easier for an ADHDer. It just does. Our school system was not designed for ADHD people. For one thing, a lot of times ADHDers are too quick for the system. They don't like sitting around listening to the same stuff over and over again at the start of every school year. They have troubles with that. They also typically are not your best sit and listen to my lecture kind of folks. They like a little more energy and activity involved in their learning, and schools just don't provide that. I mean, I think some schools are trying to catch up to that, but basically schools are still being taught the way they were in the 1800s, honestly. Listen to my lecture, read the book, take the test, and we'll go on to the next thing. With modern equipment, with the things that we can do with computers and internet in general, make that like, why are we still doing that? Why don't we do something a little more creative? Why don't we let the kids show that they can be creative? But I want to intersperse here some of the characteristics, and there are a bunch of them. If you read any of the journals, or any of the popular magazines about ADHD, there are, it's not real common because people are more concerned about the things that are problematic, but they kind of they kind of don't we don't emphasize the strengths, but when we talk about them, we know they're there. Okay. The first one I want to talk about is hyperfocus. That's, of all the strengths, that's the one that gets the most press because it's like, really? He's got attention problems, but he hyperfocuses? That's the key. The key is that ADHDers can hyperfocus like crazy, which is just getting into something and staying with it for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes that will have ruinous effects on their health, but they mostly get the work done. But the trick is that the thing that they are focusing on has to be something that they're interested in. They aren't going to focus on something boring. That's just not the way it works. But if it's in their interest, area, they will they will be just there for hours and hours, and indeed have to figure out some way to get out of that. Something like setting an alarm or having somebody, a colleague, check on them after 3 or 4 hours. Otherwise, they'll just keep going through. And that, if the area that they are interested in and hyper focus on is also an area where they're making a living, then it's great. I mean, they get a lot of work done that other people don't. And hey, that's what everybody wants. And it makes them productive, in that area. Okay, not everything, but in that area. Okay, next one is the resilient. But, well, ADHDers, I think I routinely tell you that every week that every day they get 70 critical comments. Well, you got two choices there. Either you give up or you keep fighting. And ADHDs have a tendency to be the ones that keep on fighting, that keep on going after it. So resilience is something that they develop, and I emphasize this a lot. It's parents need to help them develop resilience. Okay, they're gonna fall on their fannies a few times. Make sure they're used to that and used to figuring out how to learn from what went wrong and apply something different the next time. Okay, this next one is creativity. Okay, ADHDers are overwhelmingly involved in sports, in the entertainment industry, like music and that sort of thing, and our entrepreneurs. They like the creativity. They like the chance to problem solve new and different problems. They like to figure out how to hit the curveball if they're not very good at it initially. Those sorts of things, that kind of creativity. And they look at problems differently. Okay? At the end of almost every show, I say we need ADHDers because they solve problems that neurotypical people don't solve. They see solutions that aren't immediately obvious. That is a huge deal and very necessary in a bureaucracy, because we get all these neurotypical thinkers who are just really good at doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And but when it comes time to be creative, they sometimes don't do so well. Well, most of the time they don't do very well. Okay, and so we need ADHDers, the problem solving. They just, oh look, we can do it this way and get it done. Also, the creativity and the unusual way of looking at the world leads to having a good sense of humor. Okay, now I don't know if you can see this shirt, but this is my daughter's idea. And it says, "Keep talking, I'm diagnosing you," which is, her idea of a clinical psychologist joke kind of thing. But they do that. They have great senses of humor typically, and they're good talkers. And they're fun to be around typically. I don't have any problems or anything, any ADHD that I just totally don't look forward to seeing, especially adults. They're easier to work with. Okay, their conversational skills are typically above average, well above actually. Of my kids, the ones that are ADHDers are way more fun to talk to than the others. They have a tendency, they're interested in things, they learn things fast, they hold on to the information pretty well, if it's something they're interested in, of course. And then The next one is spontaneity. Up there, the flip side of impulsivity is spontaneity. Okay, if it works out, it's spontaneous. If it doesn't, it's the other thing. Oops, I screwed up. They are fun to be around. They typically have great senses of humor, um, and they have no difficulty telling somebody, or, well, just pointing out something that's kind of humorous. It's uh, one of those things that's a well, it's a gift. I think there's not much doubt about that. And well, some people might have a little problem with that, but um, they also are concerned about the human condition. They tend to be some of the nicest people you want to meet. They look for um, ways that they can help out. You know, they're typically the one that's the therapist on the block. You know, those um, people that other people go to talk about their problems when they're not going to somebody like me. Um, they typically will take the time to listen and try to help and try to do things for people. Of course, sometimes that backfires because they get themselves into some bad situations where they're trying to help somebody and that person does something, well, it may hurt themselves or something like that, and so then the ADHD is left with a lot of guilt. That's They also are, I've already talked about this a little bit, they're spontaneous. Boom, they're quick-witted usually. They see the humor in situations. They see the absurdity of the human condition, and they are good at pointing it out. And they have a lot of courage, usually. They don't just back off. And, sometimes that's great. Then sometimes it gets them into trouble, but in general, it's a strength. And high energy. They are well, obviously they are high energy. That's hyperactivity. But even we know that kind of slows down a little bit as they mature. But still, ADHD adults tend to have more energy than folks who don't have ADHD. So, that's why, I mean, a lot of them are athletes because of that. I just found out today that Michael Jordan had ADHD. I did not know that. And, he claims that's why he could work harder than everybody else. I don't remember that famous, I don't know, there's this famous game where he played with 104 or something like that fever, scored 32 points or some ridiculous thing like that. So it's a high energy is a good thing. They're fun to be around because they're always going, man. They don't do well if there's a lot of sitting. If they live up north, they're not going to be sitting inside by the fire while the storm rages outside. They're going to want to, get on the snowmobile or throw the skis in the back of the station wagon. Did I say station wagon? I'm sorry, SUV, and head to the hill to ski or snowboard. Probably snowboard. They're not that typical. They don't just do stuff because everybody else is doing it. And so their lives are way more interesting. My youngest, his life he has done more things in his limited time on the planet than I have, and I think of myself as pretty well seasoned. I was in the Air Force. We traveled around when I was in the Air Force. I got out of the Air Force. My wife got cancer, and we decided we're not going to wait around. We're going to travel now. And so, we've been pretty much any trekking kind of activity, we've been there. And well, it's been interesting, but he has been lots of different places. Uh, he's a jewelry designer and gemologist, and I don't know where that came from. It certainly wasn't anything in the family. We don't own jewelry stores or anything like that. And he I saw the evolution of how he became a gemologist, but I was just amazed that he did, and I was also amazed he went to a place called the GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, which has schools around the country, but he went to the one in San Diego, which when we went for his graduation, it was amazing. I mean, that was they have I guess it's a museum, but that has some amazing gems, and well, it was interesting, and found out that he was. I mean, he did really well. A lot of people who went through that course, this is the initial course, had to retake it or take a refresher over certain parts of it because they couldn't do the diagnostic piece, and he aced it the first time through. So anyway, this is getting to be a ramble, but basically, ADHDers have strengths, and it's important to us as family members, parents, partners, even to help them make the most of those. It's probably not going to be the normal pathway. They don't, do real well doing things the regular way a lot of times. Because, if it's boring, ain't happening. Which I think, honestly, at my age, it's now a little bit, the season of regret is when you're thinking, why did I settle for this? Why didn't I do more? When I'm not really the guy who does the safe thing all the time. Matter of fact, I've taken a lot of risks in my life. But ADHDers will very rarely say, I wish I hadn't missed that opportunity. They very rarely get, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, the one that stops people is the safety and security thing. Once you get a decent job and you think you're pretty safe, that's when you stop taking risks, and that's when you get nailed. You get let off by the company, or the company goes out of business, and there you are. So an ADHDer will very rarely be in that situation. They can't settle very, very well. This is nice. I like this. It's safe. Because the little secret that nobody tells you in the world, there is no safety. You don't know. You've got to be adapting and adjusting constantly, and that's what ADHDers are great at. Just absolutely wonderful at doing. Okay, I think I'm going to do another one on this topic next time, and because I think this is vitally important, and it's like I said, we tend to focus on the bad stuff with ADHD. Oh, he's so impulsive. Oh, he's but the strengths are pretty impressive as well, and we need to keep that in mind. So I will do this a version of this again, slightly different strengths and abilities, if you will. And let's see. You can get in touch with me. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. I coach ADHD executives and entrepreneurs. I also do some families, but not nearly as much. I do more of the executives and so on. And if you'd, like to have a sample session where we can get to see if we're a good fit for each other, get in touch with me. Email my website, and we will get back with you. Nowadays, with telehealth stuff, I'm not in the office, 40 hours a week like I used to be. I'm in and out, and sometimes it takes a couple of days to get in touch with me. But don't worry, I will get back with you if you want it. And soon, not sure how soon, 6 or 8 weeks from now, we will be doing a launch of a course, of my course on parenting, which I call strategic parenting, where we emphasize some of the positive, but we emphasize that you have to be, as a parent of an ADHD kid, you got to be thinking ahead. You can't just react. Like I know with my first couple of kids, I just reacted. That's the way my dad did it. I figured that was good enough. But with ADHDers, you need to anticipate a bit. And I talk a lot about how to do that. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for being here.